Good Thursday evening. Power 5 meteorologist Phil Sakel here, and starting to see some rain moving back into northeast Ohio. And this is going to be a little bit more of the pattern between now and the next couple of hours before things start to get a lot colder and certainly a lot windier over the next 6 to 18 hours. And a lot of that cold air kind of happening when we don't need it to happen first thing in the morning. But right now, just a little bit of rain here in northeast Ohio to round out this Thursday. Taking a look at the Power of 5, a lot of those rain showers, light to moderate, no real lightning threats, at least here in northeast Ohio. A couple of lightning strikes around Cincinnati and Point South. That's where a lot of the instability or that gasoline that usually helps a lot of those thunderstorms to form and stay in place. But there's not a lot, if any of that, actually here in northeast Ohio. So that is some good news. There'll be some rain, some gusts of wind as the front continues to march through. But take a look. Right behind it through Green Bay and points north and west, all of that cold air starting to move into the upper Midwest, and that'll bring a lot more of that cold to the at least northeast Ohio region for the latter half of tonight through the morning tomorrow. So all of this rain that's falling right now has a good chance of becoming more icy and slick to start off the day on Friday, right in time for that morning rush. So as we get to the next several hours, let's take a look at those temperatures here in the area, with winds starting to increase throughout the second half of this evening. We're about 29 mile per hour winds, but look at temps, still 56. And we're a little after 9 o'clock tonight, 53 in Akron, 54 now in Worcester, and 52 in Mansfield, with winds primarily out of the south. And those will start to shift more towards the west during the second half of the overnight tonight. In and around the second half of the day tomorrow, we'll really begin to see a lot more of that cold air filtering in. Take a look at the temperatures across the country. All that warmth kind of squeezing into parts of the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes right now. 9 degrees in Minneapolis, 3 in Bismarck, North Dakota, and more of that will move southward during the second half of the overnight tonight through the first half of the morning tomorrow. Thankfully, it will moderate a little bit, so not quite as cold. Those single digits, probably not the actual air temp, but boy, is it going to feel like it during the day tomorrow, with these winds still remaining pretty potent during the second half of the day today through the day tomorrow. So let's see if our new model run has come in just yet. Let's see here. We got, I think some of it might have actually uploaded. So we'll see. All right, data. Ooh, not quite yet. So we got to take a look at the old model for just a second, kind of giving you a little bit of an idea as to what we're going to be expecting throughout the second half of tonight. So the older model is from earlier this afternoon, but it kind of gives the same situation where some of that rain begins to move in for the second half of the evening hours, and there'll be a potential for some gusty winds in excess of 40 to maybe near 50 miles per hour at times between now and I'd say 1, 2 in the morning. So anything outside that could potentially drift down the street, such as garbage cans, any decorations, those inflatable displays for the holidays could definitely have a chance of moving down the road if they're not firmly in place. And there will be potential for some tree limbs kind of being jostled. I don't see a lot of damage necessarily with these winds, but still, it could be jostled. You could hear some definite changes in the wind direction with some of these gusts. And this at least system will continue to bring more rain between now and midnight tonight. The main front looks to be between about midnight and 1 a.m. to actually move through the region. So temps behind it beginning to fall back into the 40s during the second half of the evening, and still looking at some 50s, at least ahead of it, for the early half of the overnight tonight. But once we get through the second half of this evening, you'll notice a lot of 30s. It's about 4 a.m. tomorrow morning. Still some showers out there, and that is not good news. A lot of this will be liquid for the second half of the overnight tonight. But once we get closer to dawn and the morning rush begins around 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, temperatures will continue to drop and we'll be close to freezing by 7 a.m. So that is the big worry for that flash freeze for the first half of the morning tomorrow. So if you're watching right now and maybe thinking of going to bed soon, may want to have that alarm clock about a half hour before you think you actually need to leave, as some of these at least raindrops may freeze on any untreated surface for the start of the tomorrow morning. So that includes roads, sidewalks, stoops. So if you have any salt, you may want to keep it handy for the first half of the morning tomorrow, especially for the at least steps around your house. And you'll definitely maybe need the ice scraper for the windshield if your car's left outside tonight, as there might be a thin layer of ice on those cars for the first half of the morning on Friday, as these temperatures will continue to go downward during the second half of the morning. But once we get into the mid and late afternoon, a little bit of lake effect begins to take shape. Thankfully, not a lot of accumulation, as this will be a pretty quick-moving system. So I anticipate about an inch or less for most of the area, with the exception of parts of the snow belts. Could potentially pick up a couple inches for at least the morning through the early half of the afternoon. Things look to die down a bit once we get past about 7, 8 o'clock tomorrow evening. And it's just going to be downright cold for the latter half of your Friday evening. Notice temps, a lot of lower and middle 20s. That's the air temp. When you factor in the wind gusts, that's going to be a different story. A lot of this wind will be on the very, very strong side. So let's take a look at our wind chill potential starting this evening. Not a lot of wind chill, obviously, with temperatures in the 50s. But once we get past midnight through the morning tomorrow, it's going to be a different ball game entirely, because these winds are not going to die down much for the second half of the overnight with this front pushing through. So between now and about midnight, we'll start to see those wind chills dropping to at least 30, maybe upper 20s in a few locations out towards our western communities. And it's going to get a lot worse for the second half of the overnight tonight through the day tomorrow. Let's take a look at our wind chill potential by about 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. There could be some teens, especially west of I-71, and single-digit wind chills not out of the question in our western communities as early as 5, 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. So, yeah, you want to grab the winter jackets, hats, gloves, even extra layers might not be a bad idea, and there might be some delays on some of the roadways, especially those bridges, overpasses, more susceptible to this freeze, as the air can get underneath that at least road and cause a lot more of that potential of some ice on bridges, overpasses, anything that potentially could include some of the sidewalks, especially with a lot of this rain that is continuing to move in this evening. So as we get closer to mid-morning, a lot more of these single-digit wind chill factors becoming more imminent for the second half of your Friday morning. And it's not going to get any better, folks. Unfortunately, winds remain pretty strong, 30, 40-mile-per-hour gusts, a good bet for the majority of your Friday, and those wind chills will remain well into the single digits, and even maybe some below zero readings, despite temperatures only falling into the low and mid-20s throughout the afternoon. So a lot of these stronger winds are just going to make things even colder. Afternoon by 2, 3, 4 o'clock. Yeah, we're still talking single digits, below zero, a few teens at best, but it's just going to be a brutal day to be outside here in Northeast Ohio on this Friday afternoon. So if you want to get anything done, probably the afternoon, a better chance of having less ice. Obviously, the roads can be treated by that point. Salt will take care of it. That's the good news. But certainly a very bitterly cold wind will keep things much colder than they actually will be with those air temps. So if you're going to be out and about, just grab the layers, hats, gloves, scarves. Any exposed skin can certainly get a little bit colder, especially with these very strong winds as we get through the afternoon hours on Friday. Still looking at some single digits, if not a below zero reading with some of those wind chill factors, even into the wee hours of Saturday morning. So, yeah, definitely going to be an extended time frame for more of this bitterly cold air, but it's not going to stay for much longer than Saturday morning. We'll start to see the winds beginning to shift more towards the south, and that's going to pump in a little bit more average-like warmth for the second half of your Saturday afternoon, and things will get even warmer still for the latter half of the week. So if you've been dreaming of a white Christmas, I know we've seen a lot of snow over the last week or so. Unfortunately, Mother Nature not going to provide that potential once again this Christmas. So we've gone, I think, about 3 years without a white Christmas. Back was 2022 was the last white Christmas I believe we've had here in Northeast Ohio, and it does not look to be that way once again. So travel over the next few days. Tomorrow morning's probably going to be the worst for you, so we'll definitely include that red box, the poor potential of icy roads, bitterly cold wind chill factors, but it will get better by Saturday, and then Sunday and Monday travel looks a lot better here in Northeast Ohio with just some cloud cover and that threat for maybe a few raindrops, believe it or not, for the first half of next week. So a lot of this cold air is starting to take shape in the upper Midwest as we take a look at our at least live Power of 5 right now with all of the rain and cold air starting to filter in towards the northwest. Still a lot of wind advisories for most of Iowa, at least through Illinois, Missouri, but it is starting to show signs of some colder air just to the west of this front. And between, I'd say, now and 10, 11 o'clock at the very latest, we'll certainly see that increase in wind potential. So there could be some at least minor damage. I'm not seeing anything severe over 60 by any stretch, but 40 to nearly 50 mile per hour winds, a possibility with this front passing throughout the next few hours. And we'll see a lot of rain associated with this boundary. Once we get past that, a couple more snowflakes throughout the day, but then some lake effect will begin to take shape as those winds will be primarily west and northwest over a relatively warm Lake Erie. So a lot of wind and certainly a lot of cold beginning to make its way back into northeast Ohio throughout the end of the overnight tonight. So all that talk, yeah, we got back into the upper 50s this afternoon. It was a very mild early April-like day. We've not seen these numbers for quite some time, but we're not done with the warmth just yet. As I said, there's more potential of some rain to begin early next week. So that is kind of the caveat. As these colder temps will begin to move in, we'll be talking a little bit more warmth. And let's see if we can find our graphic here. Let's see here. So let's see. Pardon the graphic here. I haven't changed it since Thanksgiving there. So we'll change that to something more festive for the season here. Let's see. So there we go. We'll get a nice little, we'll get a wreath in the background there. That looks a little bit more festive. So anyway, okay, so daytime highs, we average about 39, believe it or not, towards the end of the month of December. So Saturday, we warm back up, 40s. We drop slightly for Sunday and Monday back into those 30s once again. But look at these temps by Tuesday, Christmas Eve, some mid-40s. And yeah, Christmas Day, not looking very cold at all. A lot of lower 50s, and I've even seen some models potentially bringing that temperature closer to 60 once again. So yeah, not looking very, very snowy by any stretch for the second half of next week, as more warmth will begin to move back in to round out this week and early next week. So a lot of at least warmer air on the horizon, but currently a lot of rain beginning to make its way back into northeast Ohio. Still a couple of wind advisories for our western communities between now and about 10, so another 45 to maybe another hour before that does at least expire, so that's the good news. And a lot of this rain will be fairly light to moderate, with the exception of the actual front beginning to make its way in towards about 10, 11 o'clock tonight. That will probably be a little heavier. You'll probably notice it a bit more if you do head to bed earlier this evening, but overall things are going to be definitely very, very cold for the second half of the overnight tonight. So let's see if we got a few comments. Let's see here. Kelsey, go to school tomorrow. We don't actually make the decision to close school, but I think there's a possibility of some school closings with some of these potential icy and freeze conditions to begin the morning. It all depends on how quickly that cold air moves in. My estimates right now, as early as 5 to 6 a.m. So we'll be talking right as buses kind of start their route for the start of the day tomorrow. So there's a chance of some school delays and or closings here in northeast Ohio, but not necessarily going to be a guarantee by any stretch. As long as they get the roads at least salted and cleared, I don't think we'll have as many problems for the first half of the morning tomorrow. But anything is possible with a lot of that cold air arriving fairly quickly. So we'll drop maybe about 20 to 30 degrees between about midnight and early in the morning tomorrow. So there could be a couple of at least icy patches. As I mentioned, bridges, overpass is going to be the biggest concern for the start of the morning tomorrow. And then also those wind chills as the day progresses, going to get even worse through the second half of the day. So not looking that great. Janie, very dangerous for my commute to work tomorrow. Yeah, give yourself plenty of time. It's going to be a little bit more slick, especially if you're going to be traveling on some of the back roads, some of the side roads. I think the freeway should be better off. ODOT does a great job in keeping most of those a little bit more salted during the first half of the morning, especially when we're anticipating more of this problem. Most likely, we'll see some at least issues early in the morning, but I think by mid to late morning, things will start to ease a little bit as the coldest air will continue to filter in. We'll have a better chance of getting most of those roadways salted and cleared up. There won't be as much snow. Obviously, we saw about 5, 6, 7 inches over the last several days with that big snowstorm that we saw over the weekend. maybe a couple inches. We won't be needing to plow. There's no advisories in place, but give yourself plenty of extra time to get to your destination early tomorrow morning. I know a lot of folks are heading out, maybe going shopping to get some of those last-minute holiday gifts. You certainly will need to take extra time later in the morning through the afternoon. I think the better chance of having less problems, but the winds will be increasing still. So there still will be that potential of some damaging, at least gusts over 40 miles an hour in a few locations. So definitely give yourself a little bit of a leeway as we do get into the second half of the day on Friday, even with those temperatures remaining pretty steady, but the winds will remain fairly strong once again. So that will definitely be a little bit more of an issue for the second half of the day on Friday, those winds and wind chills. But let's see if our model kind of kicked in just yet. Let's see our newest model run. Come on. Let's see here. Latest up. Yep, the 0Z has decided to make an appearance. Okay, so this is the latest computer model that we've had over the last few hours. So let's take a look at our newest guidance, and we'll take a look at a lot of that rain as anticipated. And you'll notice not a lot of that darker red on most of that line that is moving through the area by about midnight to 2 a.m. And those temperatures will begin to fall into the 40s. Once we get past midnight, there'll be some 30s out towards our western communities, and a lot of that will continue to move further eastward. And then by 4, 5, 7 a.m., getting pretty darn close to freezing, and that is going to be the biggest concern. So we'll be close to 50 by midnight, and then back to around freezing at around 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock as early, and we'll definitely be talking those flash freezes on any surface that is not at least treated and or that is certainly a little bit more wet as the rain continues to fall throughout the second half of the evening tonight and then through the second half of the day tomorrow. A little bit of snow. There'll be a potential for some accumulation, and then throughout the afternoon, there'll be a little bit more lake effect that kind of takes shape in the snowbelt region, but there will be a potential for 1 inch to maybe 3 inches in parts of the snowbelt. And if this kind of sets up, which is a potential as well, there could be another inch or two around the I-80 corridor. So give yourself a lot of extra time, even into the afternoon hours, as a little bit of that snow may start to increase potential. But most of it should be out of here by tomorrow evening. And we'll just be talking that cold wind chill of single digits through the second half of the day on at least Saturday. We'll notice temps into at least the mid to upper 30s for the second half of the day. So we're looking at a lot more warmth through the second half of your Saturday. Will be well above freezing. Certainly some good news there, but certainly late tonight through the wee hours of your Friday morning through at least Saturday morning, we'll definitely see a lot more potential of the flash freeze to begin the morning on Friday. Wind chill factors well below the teens, single digits, if not maybe some below zero readings with these temperatures only in the 20s. And then back into those 30s once again for your Saturday afternoon. So if you're planning on going anywhere Saturday, good to go. Just need the winter jacket once again. And those temps will probably make it close to about 40. And then that threat for maybe a little bit more precipitation, a little weak front pushes through late Saturday evening. Not a lot of widespread coverage. I'm not seeing too much indication of a lot of precipitation by at least Saturday nights. But then by Sunday, it'll be a little bit colder if you're planning on heading down to the Browns game for your Sunday afternoon, and then a lot of that warmth will begin to surge back in for the early half of next week. So a lot of folks traveling over the next few days will have some issues, but I think once we get into the week of Christmas, a lot more, at least calmer conditions and a lot less issues here in Northeast Ohio. Certainly, we'll be with you through the latter half of this evening. We'll be on for the 11 o'clock news on TV, and if anything gets a little too crazy, I'll certainly be back here later tonight after the 11 o'clock news to track more potential, but I'm not seeing that as a likely scenario right now. So hopefully we'll not have to do at least talk too much more after the 11 o'clock news. But if anything does get a little bit more worse, we'll certainly bring you the latest here on Facebook and or YouTube. I thank you for all of your comments, and also thank you for at least giving me some feedback here on our Facebook page and also on at least YouTube this evening. So great to hang out with you guys, and we'll be back for the 11 o'clock news. I'll bring you the latest on everything, and then if we have to, we'll be talking a little bit later tonight with some of those potential at least showers and some gusty winds. We'll hopefully not have to be here later tonight, but anything is possible. Obviously, Mother Nature certainly in control. Until then, Have a good evening, stay safe, and definitely stay warm.